All right. All right. What's going on, family? This is just an audio visual test. So as y'all coming on in, let me know if the audio and video is on point. Um, and give a couple quick updates. Typically, we have our classes on Tuesdays. However, there are some HVAC unit issues that I have at my current house. So I have the fans blowing in this particular room, which is not really getting the best amount of cooling. So I don't know if that is going to interfere with the session that I would like to do in a few minutes. But as you're coming on in, hit 1. If the audio and video is good, hit 1. If it's not, hit 2. So this is the first time that I'm broadcasting with my typical setup since I've moved into this new place. I just finished setting everything up, so I just want to make sure everything is working. Let me know if the picture looks good, if the sound is good. Just let me know. And if so, then I think I should be okay. Okay, so I'm getting mostly 1, so that's good. I don't know. Do y'all prefer live streams at this time of the day than later on at night on the weekends? The good news is now with this new place that I actually have like an office. Before I was like in my den, so it was like in the common area. So it's kind of difficult to kind of do things without being distracted or hearing other ambient sounds, etc. Now with my office, I have closed doors and everything, right? So it's less likely that I would get interference in the mic that you would hear or even in the video like before, right? So just wanted to put out there. I'm also testing out the focus on the camera. Had to make some adjustments to it. Take autofocus off, but put the degree of focus that I wanted and make sure it's center weighted so that way it's getting the picture pretty clear. Had to reset up my Logitech streaming light. Forgot what the name of it's called, but that seems to be working fine. The microphone as well. Had to make some adjustments to it. The microphone also does auto adjustment, so sometimes it'll dial the volume down, sometimes it'll dial it up. It works dynamically. I'm not a big fan of that. I might turn it off, but yeah, it's all good. All right. Okay, so one person said that this time is good. Okay, that's great. Now, do y'all hear the fans? Because I got what 2 fans. I got a large fan here and I got a smaller fan here. So I don't know if y'all can hear that. But if it's interfering with the audio, let me know. But so far, I mean, from what I can see, everything looks good. Also, I have symmetrical internet now for my ISP. So symmetrical, I got a gig up, gig down, even though I'm on wireless now because I'm not near the router. However, I get an ample amount of upload bandwidth that I did not have before. And I think that allows the picture quality to look as good as it does. All right. No, I don't have. Okay. All right, cool. Yeah. Okay, good. Okay. Yeah, because I want to give y'all the best audio and the best visuals as I can as we do what we do on this channel. I'm grateful to be back. I know a lot of people wanted to see this channel tank. I know YouTube definitely wanted to see this channel tank because I'm fighting against YouTube all the time. But either way, I mean, I did a poll on Patreon because I wanted to know like what time is good to do the classes, what time is good to do the live stream, given my my particular work schedule. Typically I have free time after 5 p.m. or sometimes maybe a little bit sooner if most of the work is done. And then later on at night. So because of that HVAC situation, the sleeping arrangements in my house is a little bit interesting because the HVAC is not working upstairs. So everybody has to sleep downstairs, which is cool. And because of that, it makes it kind of difficult for me to do the live streams like I normally do in the evenings. I could probably do them sooner now, but not at the moment until we get this HVAC issue resolved. It should be resolved by the end of this week. So By Friday evening, I should be able to do our typical Freestyle Friday, but I'm working on doing that early. So I want to do the Freestyle Friday about 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 to 12. So get a good 2 hours in. If I'm able to go long, I will, but I'm going to try to keep it at 2 hours, starting at 10 p.m., which is a little bit earlier than 11:15, or whatever we've been starting before, to accommodate more people watching the show. All right. We got another person that says after 5 is a great time to broadcast. Okay, cool. Okay. All right. Yeah. So I'm going to take that into consideration. Also, I'm going to let y'all know as well. So on Patreon, there's going to be some updates that Patreon is rolling out. Make sure you guys are signed up for the Patreon. A lot of people had unsubscribed because they probably wasn't getting new content or whatever the case may be. And I understand that because, again, I haven't been active in over a month or so like that. So with that being said, now's the time to get back onto the Patreon. I got a lot of stuff that I'm going to be posted on there. I have 3 sessions of content that I need to post. One is going on Patreon, 2 is coming on YouTube. I've been catching up on some reading, doing some more research as well. Also, make sure y'all get this series by John H. Walton. I have all of them, but I've been going back over these 3 right here. His Lost World series. He's one of my favorite Christian academics. And I have to say Christian academics because those who identify as Israelites, there's not a lot of us that are writing works like this academically or even operating as experts in the field. So I typically defer to authors, whether they be Christian or not, but authors that know how to deal with the text objectively. And John H. Walton, even being a Christian, deals with the Hebrew text objectively. The Lost World series is going to give you so much insight. It's going to change the perspective that you traditionally had in regards to the text. Now, we are using this book right now in our class, The Lost World of Genesis 1. We're going over the word bara, and we're seeing if bara means to assign a functional activity to something, or is it doing with material creation, right? So there's this concept in amongst believers, I could say Christianity, but it's not just Christianity. But a lot of people are beholden to the ex nihilo theological perspective, which means that the Most High created something out of nothing. He pulled the materials for creating our material world out of thin air, and he did his thing, right? The text doesn't teach that. When we see Genesis chapter 1, which is interesting because last night I was on Clubhouse. And again, if you're not on Clubhouse, sign up for Clubhouse. Go to Google Play, go to your Apple App Store, download Clubhouse, set it up, and get on Clubhouse. Follow me at DivineProspect on Clubhouse. I am extremely active there. And the reason why is because I don't have to do a lot of setup to get on and speak. And because of such, I am more active on there. So make sure you're getting that so you can follow up with the content that we share there as well. But I was having this discussion yesterday because, you know, there are stands. I won't even say they're stands. I don't even know what they are. They are people who are obsessed with me, right? That are out there in the world. I knew that when I started my ministry in 2015, when I started getting a lot of these people who were kind of like obsessed with me. Then it got worse, right? Where people attempted gang stalk me and all types of stuff that happened in 2016. And then 2017, 18, 19, it went at an all-time high. Y'all can go back and watch the archives. There's a ton of people that are obsessed with me. I mean, even the people used to come on here as haters, I'll be live streaming at 2, 3 in the morning, and they're here at 2, 3 in the morning being a hater and a troll at 2, 3 in the morning on a weekend. Why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? Do you love me? Maybe they love me. I don't know. So this brother's name is Star Power. We was having a whole conversation last night, and then for whatever reason, he jumped on the stage and wanted to interact with me. You know, he's a groupie, fan, stan, whatever you want to call him. I don't know what he is, but he just wants some clout for interacting with me. He claimed that, you know, he got me confused and confounded and that he taught me, he's teaching me stuff. It's hilarious, the claims people make. The problem was I recorded the session too late, but long story short, we had a difference in opinion as it pertains to Genesis chapter 1, verse 1. My position is that Genesis 1, verse 1 is a literary prologue. It is summarizing what it will be expounded on in Genesis chapter 1, verse 2 to verse 31. And there's contextual clues that indicate that. There are grammatical clues that indicate that. And I went over that with him, right? But he sees it as a chronological thing. So he says that Genesis 1, verse 1 is the first action, then Genesis 2 is the next action. Genesis verse 3, 1 verse 3 is the next action. He sees it chronologically. I had to correct them, and I said, okay, I hear what you're saying, but the problem is when you read Genesis 1, verse 1, that is in the past tense because this text is being written in retrospect. It's not being written contemporaneous to the events in which they are occurring. It's written in retrospect. Verse 1 is the prologue. A prologue is an introductory summary where the author summarizes what it's going to expound upon in the following narrative. The narrative does not start in verse 1. The narrative starts in verse 2. How do we know? Because you have a consecutive wav that shows up right after you have a statement, which is in verse 1. Verse 1 is a statement. The consecutive wav begins the narration as we go into the rest of what's being expounded upon from the introductory summary that we get in verse 1. So I went over this detail with him. He believes the concept of ex nihilo, which a lot of Christians do, but other believers outside of Christianity believe the same thing. But when we look at the text and it starts in verse 2, we see that there's material already there. The material that he uses to initiate the 7-day creation week, 6-day creation week, material and the substance is already there in Genesis chapter 2. It's already there. It's chaotic waters, watery chaos. That's there. The waters need to be tamed, and a function has to be assigned to all the elements that make up the substance that is already there. Now, did Yah create that material? Quite possibly. But the text is not concerned with that because it does not give us that background. For the same reason why the text does not tell us about quote unquote angels, does not tell us about other ontological ethereal beings and their beginning, how they were created. The text is not concerned about any of that. Why? Because the text is a direct apologetic to the ancient Near Eastern cosmogony epics. The author, that some ascribe to Moses, who I ascribe to the royal scribes in the monarchy of Israel, pulling from oral traditions that go back to who we say is Moshe. That's my perspective in regards to what we call the Pentateuch, or we call it the Torah, right? The first 5 books, right? But either way, the author is not concerned with telling you the origin of Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, if he even has an origin. Because if he's the self-existent one, he has no origin, right? So the author is only concerned with the deity's relationship to mankind. This is what we get when we read Genesis chapter 1 and Genesis chapter 2. That is the concern of the author. So the creation week is the summit when it began, when on high, very similar to Enuma Elish when that begins. It introduces you to what you're about to experience. In verse 2, the material is there. He starts separating, cutting, shaping, forming, fashion, and then filling. He cuts, bara, berit, cutting the fat, splitting it into passing through. We see that happens with the deity, and he confirms the covenant with Abraham. That's what he does. Bara, when we get Beit, Resh, Aleph, that triconsonantal root, however you want to mix it up and conjugate it, at the root is dealing with the cutting of fat or the cutting, shaping, and fashioning of something. Bara only has the subject or the nominative of the deity. Only the deity can bara. He's either the implied subject or the direct subject. Only bara relates to the deity. This is a function that can only be done by Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. It cannot be done by man. That's very important. So then when we look at this, the material is already there, and he's pulling things apart. So he pulls the waters from the waters above. Then he creates a canopy to separate these waters from these waters. The word shamayim, the root word mayim, means waters. It's a dual plural. Anytime you have aim, it's a dual plural, as in mitzrayim. It's a dual plural. Typically, it's patach, and it's patach yod mem, final mem, aim. That's your dual plural. In Hebrew, you have singular, dual plural, and plural. If you want more details in regards to this, sign up for our classes. Go to www.patreon.com/DivineProspect. Sign up for the $50 tier and join our classes, because in our classes, we go into detail about all of this. So right now, where we are in our classes is that we're doing a review of the exam that I gave out about 3 weeks ago. And we're doing a review of the exam. I graded all the tests. I'm going to review the exam, and then I'm going to give back the papers to the students so they can see what they scored, right? What they was graded. But what I'm doing is I'm just giving you a little bit more insight, right? So you can see how this functions and why books like this. When I say that John H. Walton, when I discovered him about 8 years ago, I think it was 2016. There's two particular authors that really shaped the way. I mean, there's several others, but these are the two most notable that really shaped the way that I look at Hebraic culture and Hebraic text. And that is a non-academic but astute author and teacher by the name of Jeff Benner, and an academic teacher and professor by the name of John H. Walton. Okay? Jeff Benner helped me to see the differences between Western Greek culture and Eastern Hebraic culture. To see, one is form, the Greek, Western, one is function, the Hebrew, Eastern. Form, function. I was like, oh, shoot, I never seen it that way prior to that. And I learned about Jeff Benner back in 2013. That's when I first realized that he existed 11 years ago. And when I got into his work, I was like, wow, this guy's not an academic. I wouldn't cite him if I'm writing a professional paper, but I will cite him outside of that, right? But once he showed me that, I was like, wow, okay, I learned something that I really did not know before. And it shaped me in a way where I was like, wow, I got to see the text much differently, right? And then John H. Walton. John H. Walton removed the theological dogma that I had about the Tanakh coming from Judeo-Christianity. I don't have that dogma anymore. So the way I see it, like I said, I do not subscribe to the ex nihilo theological dogma anymore, but I see the text the way the author intended it for his primary recipient audience, who would have been familiar with the cosmogony epics of the day, especially those of Babylon, especially epics like Atrahasis, epic of Gilgamesh, the Enuma Elish, and others that are cosmogony epics, telling you the beginning of the cosmos. So now when I see the Hebraic text against its ancient Near Eastern background, everything then begins to make sense. It pulls you out of that theological abstraction of how we perceive the text to what the text actually is saying. That's why when I wrote my dissertation paper, it had to do with the Hebraic text against its ancient Near Eastern background. And not just the Hebraic text, also what we call the New Testament. Because I'm of the pedigree of the Jewish Christians, as academia calls it, and they had the Hebraic mindset during the time of the Roman rule, which was plainly Hellenized. And the way that they saw things was in stark contrast to the Hellenism of the day, the Greek culture of the day. And there's some great sources that talk about it. One source is the New Testament in its world. These are resources that you can get from the Patreon. I also have a video series of that posted on the Patreon that you can get access to. Sign up for the Patreon, $10, $20, etc. One thing we're going to start doing that now is gifting out Patreon for 1 month when we do like giveaways and stuff like that. So people who are on the fence, now I can gift it to you so you can take a look to see if the full repertoire of 1,000 plus posts that we have on there and tons of informational, educational content. So again, you're not going to hear this in our community. The majority of our community is steeped in Judeo-Christian dogma. This channel, we put dogma to death. Also, sign up for the Patreon to get access to the Death to Dogma series. So when I say that these are the books that you have to get, this is a must-have in your repertoire. I have them all digitized on the Patreon because I have the physical books as well. And you can get access to my library by signing up for the Patreon. Sign up for the Patreon, www.patreon.com/DivineProspect. So when I go into these conversations, I go into a perspective that is outside the box. It's a paradigm shift because the current paradigms has carried us but so far. But the paradigm shift is going to put you back in proper perspective and remove the misappropriation that the West has done to this Hebraic ancient Eastern text, Near Eastern text, and put you back into the seat that the author designated for the recipient audience to receive. You must first contextualize the historical perspective of the text before you can map it to today, because if you do not establish historically what the author intended for this audience, then you're going to misapply it today and you will not be able to execute it the way it was intended. Thank you, Higher Aptitude, for the donation. Let me see. Contact me when you can. Dallas will be in the Atlanta area a few days, July. So okay, cool. Yeah. If you're in Atlanta, brother, that'll be much better than when I saw you in Dallas, because we can physically sit down and chop it up with no distractions. All right. So yes, you can contact me at the number that should be in the. Let me just post it up here. You already have my number. Who it should be down below as well. And if anybody needs to reach out, contact, whatever the case may be. But yes, no problem, my brother. Definitely will be. All right. So shalom to everybody joining. Again, this is not even an official live stream. I'm just testing, right? So when you look at the classes that we have, and again, I put a preview of it on this YouTube channel. We are doing something that has never been done in the Israelite community before. Can y'all see that? Poppy soda. My favorite flavor is wild berry. It's a prebiotic soda, 5 grams or less of sugar, apple cider vinegar, all organic components, sparkling water, organic cane sugar, organic apple cider vinegar, apple juice, organic agave, inulin, natural flavor, citric acid, stevia, and vegetable juice for color. So no preservatives, no false colors or nothing like that. You can get this from gas stations like QT, Racetrack, Speedway, or you can get it from where I get some of them from as well, as from Kroger, Publix. You can also order it online, right? I used to be a fan of soda years ago. I stopped soda, I think back in 2009. I stopped drinking soda. And then I got back into soda about three years ago. I don't drink it every day, but 3 years ago when I discovered healthy soda, I was like, oh, shoot, they got healthy soda. It's pretty good. So if you like soda, my recommendation, do not drink Dr. Pepper, Pepsi, Coca-Cola. All of these things have tons of sugar and corrosion with the ingredients and the way they mingle. It creates corrosion, has a corrosive effect, right? And that can tear up your GI tract. So my recommendation, if you do enjoy soda, is to get you Poppy or Olipop, the 2 brands that I drink with prebiotic healthy soda, okay? All organic ingredients, all right? All right, so it's transition, right? So when you are able to transition, again, this is what the classes are here to teach, right? We're teaching you how to think and understand the world. He said, what about Fanta? No Fanta, brother. Think and how you perceive the world the way the ancients did back in the day. This is what we are affording to the students of our classes. We're taking you back into time. We're getting you to see nuances and things that you never discovered before in the text. There's so much information in the text, but you got to get into the culture, the language, the culture, the mannerisms and customs. Well, that's important. And his history and history of the surrounding world as well, not just the text. The Bible was not written in a vacuum. They did not live in a vacuum. There was influences and cultural diffusion going from Israelites to other cultures and from other cultures to Israelites. So we're taking you back in time so you can read the text the way it was intended. But you have to put aside the dogma. And that is a very, very difficult thing to do. I know when I became an Israelite and I started learning about these things, I had to kill my dogma. It had to go. But it was very difficult doing that because, you know, you get to a point where you're like, dang, I learned this all my life. Am I really willing to lay this down for something that is more accurate, that's going to really take me to what the text is actually saying? It's heavy. I was having a conversation with my dad yesterday, and he's telling me about Lucifer, right? Oh, Lucifer was cast down from heaven. I said, no, that's not true, Dad. You know, I love my dad. You know what I'm saying? I love my dad, but he's wrong on a lot of things because he's steeped in dogma. He's steeped in dogma. I told him, Dad, Lucifer is not in the Hebrew text. What are you talking about? Why are you bringing up Hebrew? I'm talking about the English Bible. Is it in it? Yes, it's in your KJV Bible. But who is the recipient of the lamentation? Who's the accusative of the lamentation? Who's the one receiving the lamentation that the Most High is inspiring Isaiah to say? Who is it directed towards? And I told them it's the king of Babylon in Isaiah chapter 14. It's not being discussed about no ethereal, supernatural, ontological creature. Lucifer comes from lucis. It is a verbal noun that's transformed from lucis in the Latin to lucifer. It's Latin. It's not in the Greek. It's not in the Hebrew. Greek being the LXX or the Septuagint. It's talking about the king. So some people say, oh, but the king was possessed by the devil. Where does it say that in the text? Where does the text say that the king of Tyre in Ezekiel 28 and the king of Babylon, Isaiah 14, was possessed by the devil? Where does it say that at? It don't say that. So why are you saying that? All because you got the dogma on you. That dogma's serious, man. That's a serious thing to have that dogma on you. You can't even see something as clear as day. I just asked him, who is Isaiah speaking to? Whoever he's speaking to is the one that he's speaking about. You got to just read the context. So now when you get into the imagery, say, oh, I will be like the whole time. I'm going to put myself with stars. So now you got to understand the language, the poetic language that's being used there and the literary devices that the author is using for the king depicting himself as being greater than the gods. The king of Babylon always thought that he was the biggest god out of all the gods. He'd have a patron god, which is Marduk, but he himself is God incarnate. He would say a lot of blasphemous stuff. And we see that in Isaiah chapter 14. This is not about the devil, Satan. Lucifer is an invention from the Vulgate. It's not in the Hebrew text. And what happens is your translators kept the dogma. Lucifer literally means Hillel means shining one. You take halal, which means to shine, and you take out the I sound, put the it sound, Hillel, and you get the verbal noun, which is shining one. because these are epithets of the king of Babylon, if you read any kind of Babylonian literature. But I know a lot of people don't, so they don't understand these things. But I try to introduce it to them, and it's a shock because they're not ready for it. And I realize a lot of people are not ready for that. It's like the movie The Matrix. A lot of people was not ready to be woken up. It's a shock factor involved. Shock factor. And, people use names like heretic and you're not spiritual. All this stuff they try to say as ad hominems instead of actually dealing with the text. Yo, I like that, Ratazan. Excellent point. Dogma is worse than crack because the people don't know it's a drug they are addicted to. That's great. I love that. I love that. I love that. Thank you. All right. So what I'm going to do, I don't have a lot of time left. I'm about to get off here in a few. Again, I was just testing. Thank you for those of you who joined in and gave me feedback to let me know that the audio and visual test was a success. That's great. Again, this is my first day setting up my streaming equipment while being here in my new abode. So I appreciate y'all for coming on this journey with me, for being with me, and for giving your feedback. But even if I'm going to do an audio visual test, I'm going to give you some spiritual meat. All right. So, in conclusion, it's good to read these texts. So another good text, another author that I really like is James K. Hoffmeyer. Okay. I showed y'all this book before, The Prophets of Israel, Walking the Ancient Paths. At any given time, I'm reading at least 10, 11 books at a time. I don't even know. These two books that I told y'all about. What's this one? Yeah, Patronage in Ancient Palestine in the Hebrew Bible. This is the material in here. I've taken some of it and I'm putting it in my upcoming lecture. And then also this one here on biblical worship as well. I've taken some of this and I'm putting some of this. These are going to be some of the sources cited in my upcoming lecture. Okay. But when you read material that gets you to think outside the box, outside of that dogmatic box, you begin to see a whole new world. Remember that movie Aladdin? A whole new world. Yeah, the text becomes a whole new world. People say, "Oh, I read the Bible." Yeah, you read it. So it's nice to read it. But do you know what you're reading? Again, sign up for our classes, www.patreon.com/DivineProspect. Sign up for the classes. When you sign up for the classes, we will teach you all of this stuff. Right now, we're dealing with the grammatical lexical analysis, and then we're transitioning to the contextual analysis. The 7 points of our inductive research study methodology analysis that we perform on a text to bring us to a thesis, from a problem question to a hypothesis to our thesis, and the process in between. I've taken years of study. I've been doing this since 2008. I've taken 16 years of study from what I've encountered via academia, self-study, etc., and I condensed it down to a 7-point analytical process that you can utilize on any passage of scripture, and you can decipher it for yourself. You can see it the way that people who are more studied see it, and class is only $50 a month. People pay thousands of dollars to learn this stuff. The resources I give you cost thousands of dollars. The books that I ship, thousands of dollars, just to get access to this knowledge. People say, "You charging for the word." I'm not charging for the word. Bibles are free. If you want the word, go read the Bible. But if you want somebody to expound on the word, that's different. All praise to the Most High. Let me give a couple of shout outs and then I'm going to bounce. Hey, Israelite Defense, I see you there, brother. So just so you know, I've addressed that. I mentioned the communicatio idiomatum on my last live stream. Do you remember that, Israelite Defense? That is actually a theological construct by Trinitarians, But it actually, I'm going to keep it frank. I presented the fusion theory, right? The fusion theory. I purported this back in 2019 when I did my lecture series. What was the lecture series? It was El Shaddai, Yod Hey Wav Hey, El Elyon, three of a kind or one and the same. And I presented my fusion theory there. And that fusion theory is very similar to the communicatio idiomatum. Very familiar. If you understand that doctrine, you'll see it's very familiar. But the way that I communicated is truer to the text from my perspective. Where the logos, which I mentioned before, is the instrument of the deity that he uses for communicative and creative purposes. Whenever he wants to create something, he uses the word. Whenever he wants something to be performed, he uses the word. Whenever he wants to create, communicate, or perform, he uses the word to do it. You see that in Isaiah chapter 55, verse 11. This is the 1st century CE understanding of logos, which is a Greek term. This is what he's doing. This is what the instrument is. In the beginning, and again, when it says in the beginning, in John chapter 1, verse 1, what beginning is this? In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Yes, that instrument is a part of him. It's an instrument he uses. It was with him, and it was him. And he sends that word to go do his thing, which is his hand connected to his arm. So he takes that hand, he puts it in the prophet, speak this, like puppet master. Puts it in the puppet, speak, pulls it out. And then he goes and says, okay, I want to do this. Sends that hand in the earth, do a little bit of stuff, pull that hand back. All right, let me see. What else am I going to do? All right, I want to create some stuff here. Sends that hand to go work it and do it, bring it back. Puppet master. Yeshua took that word, that instrument, put it in that man. We see in Hebrews chapter 1, verse 1, and the 4 times he spoke to us through the prophets. Take that, put it in the prophet. When his last day, he spoke to us through the Son, and then he took that logos and fused it with the Son. Now the Son is permanently on him like this. This is the Son. Son is attached to him now. The other prophets put it in, take it out. Put it in, take it out. But Yeshua put it in, stays there, fuses. Now he is the logos. He is the word of God. Take that hand seated at the right hand of him of power and uses that to execute judgment in the earth. There's no two gods. There's no co-equal, co-eternal gods. There's one God, the Father, and one Lord, Jesus Christ. This is the words of Paul. That Lord is the bailiff that performs whatever the judge tells him to do in the heavenly court. That's how that works. The bailiff sits close to the judge. He is his right hand of power. So I'm giving you some secular analogies so that you can understand what I'm saying. The angels are the extension of his hand. That's good. The angels, I would say, is not part of his hand. The angels are independent of the Father and his word. They're independent. But he can take that same word, because now the angels are spirit, and put that word in the spirit and send that spirit down in the earth. Take it back. Take it out the angels. All right, you done. All right, who's next? You put it here. He sends that word out to accomplish, and it does not return to him void. He gets the job done. Because we have figurative language, or what we call personification, the word is personified in John chapter 1 the same way that wisdom is personified in Proverbs chapter 8. So when you apply she to Chokmah, does that mean that wisdom is a literal woman? No. It's a literary device that's used called, or we could say hyperbolic language, a literary device that is used called personification. The word itself, he, is applied to logos. Logos is a masculine noun in Greek. So he is applied to that masculine noun. There's a neuter in Greek. Another word could be used outside of logos. That's a neuter in Greek, but they decided to use logos, which is a masculine noun. So therefore, he being connected to that Would make sense. However, Trinitarians give sentience to this he, and they say it has a will, like the Father has a will, independent will, but the wills are in sync because they come from the same essence. This is what they say. What I'm saying is there's other ways to express that. I don't believe in the personage of the Logos. That's not my perspective. I disagree with the personage of the Logos. I disagree with that. That's not my position. Again, my position comes from the historical perspective of the Logos, as we see explained in detail by Philos of Alexandria, who was a first century Hellenistic Jew. So if this is being written by Jews in Greek to a Hellenistic Jewish audience, because they're reading it in Greek, then the concept of the Logos will be equivalent to how it was understood in the 1st century CE. And the best that you get from a Hellenistic Jew that writes about this is Philos. That's my perspective. That is how I see it based on his historical anchorage. Now, others will disagree, of course, and I expect them to. This is the beauty of academic discourse and peer review. You're going to have people that disagree. But this is the way that it is. So with that being said, Israelite defense, post a citation, and we can address it. Well, what I will say to you, So Real, that prologue that we get in John chapter 1, verse 1 to verse 18, that's a prologue. My perspective is that of several other scholars that say that that was put together much later by the Johannine community to combat Gnosticism or Docetism of the 1st century CE, for the same reason why John chapter 21 is affixed to the narrative of the book of John or the Gospel of John, to address the Gnostic perspective that say that the spirit is good, the flesh is bad, therefore Jesus could not have been flesh because he would have been bad. The Savior of mankind had to be pure, perfect, and holy, and there's no way that he could if he came in the flesh. Hence why we see in 1 John's epistles that he that says that Jesus Christ did not come in the flesh is the Antichrist. Why? Because part of that Johannine community split off, created a sect, and they went into Docetism. So therefore, in order to address Docetism, this is why you have the prologue in John chapter 1 and why you have the extension of the appendix that's called John chapter 21. It's to address that. Very simple. When I did the debate on Clubhouse in regards to the pre-existence of Jesus Christ, I went all throughout Philo's work, and I shared what Philo's work was. I shared it. One thing I learned from John H. Walton, and I don't know if I can find it right now, but I could definitely paraphrase what he said. What he said was, events in history is a natural order that Yah set in motion. So you have historical events that happen naturally based on the factors that Yah put in motion. However, what we read in the text is a divine interpretation of the secular natural realm. The Bible gives a hyperbolic account of historical events because it gives you the spiritual eyes to see what's going on in the natural realm. So it no longer becomes a coincidence. So real. I don't know why there would be something contrary if the Johannine community, the community that was created after John died, the same community that Polycarp and Irenaeus were part of, that community is responsible for that. You're not going to find any fragments of John chapter 1 or John chapter 21 amongst the P fragments. in regards to the prologue in John chapter 21. So any early text that we have of John, it's not going to be of John 1, the prologue, or John chapter 21. But this is a whole nother conversation. If you have a first century church father that quotes John chapter 1, verses 1 to 18, and John chapter 21, please post it in the chat. But anyway, like I said, whole nother conversation. Oh, shout out to my brother. I see Brooks. I'm happy to hear that. So I guess y'all are okay with live streams around this time. If so, then I'll keep doing them around this time. No problem. Actually, this time works best for me anyway. But just let me know. And again, I can still go live in evenings and during the day or whatever. I'm working to be more flexible. All right. LAX, I believe the opposite. I believe that the material world is the concrete masculine element, and the spiritual world, or the abstract elements of the material world, is feminine or transcendental. That's my perspective. And that's based on looking at the Hebraic language and how we see if there's a word that's masculine and then they have the feminine essence. A great example is halach. Halach literally means to walk. Halakha is the abstraction of walking, the reflective of walking. You can see that. So, to your point, that's how I see it, based on how the language operates, right? Yes, Cyril, I understand that that's exactly how you believe because you're Eastern Orthodox Christian. So I understand that, right? So tradition for you would be that oral tradition that we see hinted at amongst the early church fathers, and what the church fathers have written and what they subscribe to and what their tenets of faith was, that we see later on become codified and become a creed during the ecumenical councils. I understand that. I got you. No problem. Right? Shalom, sis Lisa Marie Anderson. Shalom. Shalom, So Real. Shalom, Israelite Defense. Shalom, Howard Boyd. What's going on, my brother? Shalom to Ayash. Shalom to Araktasa Yasharala. Shalom to Peace Be Still. Let me see who else. Shalom to Oriyahu. Nice seeing you around here, Elder. Shalom to Chief Ara. Perform acceptable faith. Shalom. All right, so you said adoptionism. All right, let me see. I got a few minutes. All right, let me see if I can address that real quick. Shout out to You Love Yah. Shalom. Shout out to Get Wise. Shalom. Higher Aptitude. Shalom. Jaslyn Berry. Shalom. Dwayne E. Butler. Shalom. Psalm 51. Shalom. Believers of the Report 144. Mr. Yeshurun. Shalom. GM. Shalom. Let me see. Brian Tompkins. Shalom. Kaya Houston. Shalom. Sister Santawa. Shalom. Maurice Crum. Shalom. MTX. Shalom. Gold Mine Entertainment. Shalom. Let me see. I think that's everybody. Ahuv. Shalom. Talmid the Commando. Shalom King. Let me see. I think that's everybody. Rumi D. Yes, shalom, my brother. What's going on? Junior. Shalom. New Earth. Shalom. Learn a lot. Shalom. Okay. All right. Ecclesiastic. Shalom. Yaakov. Shalom. Kodak. Shalom. All right. Okay. Looks like we got a full house today. Let me see if I can address that real quick. Hey, Talmid, handle that work for me in the chat, brother. You can address my brother So Real. Yeah, handle that for me, Talmid. You already know, King. You already know what it is. All right, so I'm going to address where was it at? Hold on. Where was it at? Adoptionism. All right, that's it. All right. So, Again, my library currently is in boxes because I ordered a bookcase I'm gonna put right behind me here. And until that comes, I have at least 10 boxes, large boxes like this that has just books in them, right? A whole bunch of books. So I can't get to the sources as easily now. So I'll try to address it based on my elephant memory, right? So, in regards to the doctrine of adoptionism, this was considered heretical by the ante-Nicene church fathers who who saw all the church fathers after Justin Martyr, who tolerated the Jewish Christians or the Ebionites, Nazarenes, who saw this doctrine as heretical. And the reason for that is because they subscribed to the virgin birth and the pre-existence of Jesus Christ. If you subscribe to the virgin birth and the pre-existence of Jesus Christ, then the following doctrine of adoptionism is going to be considered heretical for you, right? Adoptionism is what the Jewish Christians believe that happened to Yeshua. Yeshua was adopted as the Son of the Most High at his baptism. He was declared the Son at his baptism. He received the Spirit at his baptism, and he performed his ministry after his baptism. After he was tempted, then he performed his ministry. So adoptionism means he was divinely adopted as the Son of the Most High by way of the Spirit that descended on him in bodily form. I was on Clubhouse a couple days ago, and people were teaching that Jesus is the Holy Spirit, which I thought was fascinating. And then I give him the passage when he was baptized, and I said, well, how is he the Holy Spirit when the Holy Spirit is descending on him in bodily form? How does that work? Shout out to Work Hard and Grind. I guess, are you Work Hard and Grind? Are you a KJV aficionado? Is that your translation of choice, the KJV? But anyway, so an adoptionism this is what the Hebraic Jewish Christians subscribe to. That Yeshua became divine at his baptism when he was begotten at his baptism, when the Father sired him at the baptism by way of the Ruach. That's that doctrine. So, just like the Theotokos, which is the God-bearer theory, and Mary, the mother, she's the mother of God, the God-bearer, right? The Ruach, or the Spirit. The pneuma in Greek is neuter, but it performed the begetting action of Yeshua when Yeshua was being baptized. It was the agent that brought him forth, in which the Father received him as the Son. Now, he was prophesied prior to that in Luke chapter 1 and Matthew chapter 1. But he wasn't called the Son by the Father's voice himself until we get to Luke chapter 3 and Matthew chapter 3. Well, Luke chapter 3, baptism. So real. You said many of the Ebionites believed in the virgin birth. Okay, give us a source. What source do you have on that? I know some of the Nazarene sects believed in the virgin birth. Show me which sects of the Ebionites, by means of the church fathers, which church fathers said that they believed in a virgin birth. Provide that citation if you can, brother, in the chat. KJV is dated, very dated. Not just the English being dated. The text itself is dated. The translation is dated. It does not stand up to today's standards anymore. However, I like it for its poetic value. I love the way it reads, because when I grew up in high school, English was my favorite subject. So I love Shakespearean language. I love that modern early English, which it's part of. I love that style of literature. And that's what the KJV is. Also, there's some places where the KJV gets the translation on point more than a lot of other translations, which is fascinating, even better than some modern translations. But that does not make the KJV the best translation. In another room on Clubhouse again that I was in, the question was, what's the best translation? I broke down formal equivalency translations, dynamic equivalency translations, explained what the gamut on the spectrum was in regards to how these translations function. I went into translational theory and all that other stuff, right? I told them what are my top 3 translations if I go to a translation, right? I have one that's a formal equivalency, a dynamic equivalency, and one that's in the middle, right? So my formal equivalency would be the ESV, my dynamic equivalency would be my NIV, and then my middle would be the NET. These are the 3 translations that I prefer to use, right? And that's based off of, the translator's notes, the translation style, etc., right? But I told people you should be reading the text in English the way it reads in the original language. Therefore, you need an interlinear or a reverse interlinear. Yeah, so Ecclesiastes, the Clementine homilies, you have the pseudo-Clementine homilies and the Clementine homilies, right? The Clementine homilies helps to authenticate what the Jewish Christians believed. This is why scholars say the Gospel of Thomas more than likely also came from the lineage of the Jewish Christians. So what I want from you, brother, I remember what I'm saying. The Nazarenes were not part of the Ebionite sect. They were part of the Jewish Christians, which is the overall family of the group. And then from Jewish Christians, which were ethnic Jews who were believers of Yeshua and kept the law. So from this, you have the people of the way, the sect of the Nazarenes, and the sect of the Ebionites. And there's a couple of other sects too, like the ones that Hegesippus was part of, etc. So you have Jewish Christians was the umbrella. Underneath that, you have the people of the way. Then you have the Nazarenes and the Ebionites. So when you read the book, and again, I wish I had it right now at I wish I had it right now because I would read for you directly the quotations from Jerome so we can see exactly what he's saying. The Nazarenes is not from the Ebionite sect. The Nazarenes is from the Jewish Christian sect, but the Ebionites were. Now, the Nazarenes also, later on in history, the ones who actually were converted out and followers of later on the Peshitta, the Peshitta text, which again does not represent those early Jewish Christian followers. That would be represented by the OSS, which you already know that I subscribe to. I've mentioned Arthur Buber, Braddock, and others who have said this and who have proposed this. So, with that being said, what I'm saying is those people out there who subscribe to being Jews or Israelites or whatever, your pedigree should be these early Jewish Christians. There's a book called Nazarene Christianity that gives you the history of what happened to these Jewish Christians. So that one of the same coin that you're referring to, again, you have Jewish Christians, then you have coming from out of that, the Nazarenes, the Ebionites in the way. I already acknowledged to you that the Nazarenes, some within the Nazarenes, a group of them subscribed to the virgin birth, a small group. The larger group did not. The Ebionites did not. And Jerome was not the only person that spoke about this in regards to these Jewish Christians. Justin Martyr speaks about them. He tolerates them. Irenaeus speaks about them, and he talks a little bit about them, right? And we have others. Origen speaks about them. We have tons, not tons, but we have at least 10 church fathers that speak about them, right? So you have to take all that data together, synthesize it, and then deduce, okay, how do we then separate this out? I have a whole lecture on this. We're all primary sources. So with this being said, if you are a Jew or an Israelite and you subscribe to Yeshua as a Messiah and you keep the law, then your pedigree should go back to these Jewish Christians. That means what you reflect today in regards to your subscription or your tenets of faith should go back to what they subscribe to. And here's something else you won't get, my brother So Real. None of those Jewish Christian groups believe that Jesus was pre-existent. Jerome is not even going to say that to you. All right? That's why I don't subscribe to the pre-existence. You see clearly in Acts chapter 21 that there were groups with James in Jerusalem, who was the real OG, James, who was zealous for the law and believers of Yeshua. You can do both. Paul proved that he lived in observance of the law in Acts chapter 21. So if you identify as a Jew and you keep the law and you subscribe to Yeshua, you know, Christianity categorizes that as Messianic Judaism. If you want to see the true pedigree for that, it needs to go back to those Jewish Christians. You know, it's three groups: Christians, Jews, Jewish Christians. And of those three groups, one just so happily just disappeared from the annals of history. No work of them survive. Only what is said about them by their adversaries and opponents. Yeah, so Ignatius, and you mentioned Ignatius. Was Ignatius a Jew? Tell me, So Real. My brother, tell us right now. Was Ignatius a Jew? Yes or no? And I don't subscribe to the fact that the New Testament teaches the pre-existence of Jesus Christ. I don't subscribe to that. But we definitely can have a conversation about that some other time. Shout out to the Zaken in the building, D. Glen Royal. What is going on, Elder? What's going on? Yes, that is a problem because, again, being that Ignatius was not a Jew, he's going to have those types of perspectives. So when I did my debate on this subject matter, did Jesus Christ pre-exist? Jesus Christ. The text never says Jesus Christ pre-exists. No such thing as Jesus Christ pre-existing, right? But when I went over this, I went into the work of Fredo. And the work of Fredo, I showed this pre-existence doctrine, which comes from Greek philosophy. And you'll see, Stanford University, Cambridge University, and others. We have scholars from several of those universities that say that these ideas of pre-existence was inseminated. Matter of fact, the book I have, let me get it for you. Hold on. The idea of pre-existence was inseminated into the first century movement of Jesus Christ. And as they were working out the doctrine and trying to figure out when Gentiles swept in to try to better understand Jesus Christ, like people like Ignatius and others that you're mentioning, they're bringing with them this residue of Greek philosophy. Let me give you a good source to kind of begin to see what it is I'm talking about. Hold on. Let me grab it real quick. I'm not going to leave you comfortless without a book or reference or source to back up what I'm saying. The name of the book is called Light from the Gentiles, Hellenistic Philosophy and Early Christianity. Let me get that for you and drop it in the chat. Take a look at it for yourself and see that Divine ain't making this stuff up. Here it is. You're welcome. So LAX, that's a great question. Email me at kingdomharbinger@gmail.com, and I will share some of those sources with you, LAX. The email is in the ticker below and in the description. All right. And I'm going to dip out. It was great spending this hour plus with you guys. Thank you for those who participated in the dialogue in the chat, as well as getting me to answer questions and address them on the live. I appreciate y'all. Shout out to Apothecary Custom, Shalom. Let me see, who else? Invisible Man 8, Shalom. Did the Ebionites include the Book of Enoch in Jubilees? No, they did not. The Ebionites only dealt with the Tanakh as we know it and the Hebrew or Aramaic version of the Book of Matthew. Right now, they were influenced by the Qumran community. They were influenced by them, and more than likely, they may have subscribed to Enoch and Jubilees. We just don't know because we don't have any of their works. None of their works survive for us to know, meaning outside the text that they carry, for us to know really what they subscribed to and what books they read. We only have what we have from their opponents or adversaries, which is the worst way to represent somebody's position is from their adversary or opponent. The worst way, because it's not going to be objective. It's not. There's going to be some bias in there. Shout out to Drose TV. Shalom. Let me see. I think I got everybody. Work hard, grind. Shalom. All right. So I'm going to dip out. Yeah, so let's discuss that next time. But I got a source in the chat. Take some time to read that. Let me know what you think. Talks about different things, but I'm also share a source on the pre-existence debate, the incarnation debate. Matter of fact, let me share it with you right now. This is one of my favorite books in regards to the pre-existence theological perspective and the incarnation. I'm gonna share one of those books with you. This is a Christian Trinitarian author, this Trinitarian Christian author, by the way, who says that the only book of the Bible that teaches what we can interpret as pre-existence is the book of John. It's nowhere else. And I agree. The book of John is very interesting because even some early Gnostics used the book of John. But let me share that source. All right. There's an oldie but goodie by my man, James G. D.G. Dunn. Let me share it with y'all. I'll share it with y'all. I'll put it in chat. Y'all can have it. Okay. Let me fix this. Hold on. There we go. Copy link. I'll drop it in here for y'all. Base share. All right, enjoy. All right. Ben Yehuda, shalom. All right, y'all. So thank y'all for your time, family. Thank you for helping me out with this test. I really do appreciate it. I will see you guys this Friday on our Freestyle Friday. To all my students that is in our KHM Holistic Research Paradigm for Bible study classes, please stay tuned to Patreon for further updates when we do the exam review. Okay, if you're not on Patreon, get on Patreon, www.patreon.com/DivineProspect. Get access to all these resources, videos, material, language courses, etc. Right? To step your study game up. Study to show yourself approved by signing up to the Patreon. All praises to the Most High. All right, family. I love y'all. Thank you for support. I'll see y'all in the next session, the live stream. You'll be good. I pray the Most High will have his ruach upon you to keep you and guide you and lead you to all truth. All right? Peace and shalom.